where he came in contact with many great yoginis. He had been initiated by Pandit Sri Ram Sharma Acharya, the founder of Gayatri Parivar, with its organizational headquarters at Haridwar. Under the instruction of his Guruji, Masterji came down to Guntur in Andhra Pradesh and started with the profession of a lecturer in a college. But soon, he was drawn out to launch World Regeneration Movement. Single-handedly, he has set up a large number of institutions. He has a large number of disciples in India and abroad. He is also a PhD in electrochemistry at Banaras University. For the benefit of people like us, he has been conducting discourses in very large number and wide range of spiritual subjects. He had earlier conducted a study circle on the synthesis of yoga in Hyderabad. Today and for the next 6 days, he will guide us through the synthesis of yoga. His aim is to kindle us a flame so that we pursue Sri Aurobindonian philosophy. All life is yoga. May I now request Masterji to lead us on to the light. Thank you.
Page 281, the last paragraph, which starts with, "It must be kept in mind." Just keep it open. Before that, we will go through the promise divine. In the jail, he had received the divine message, "I am rising up this nation to send forth my word. It is for the world and not for themselves that they arise. I am giving them freedom for the service of the world." This is what Sri Aurobindo announced when he came out of the Alipur jail. And this should be our guiding light. While studying any book written or authored by Sri Aurobindo, and when I say authored, that means his indirect influence. His indirect influence, many books have been written, and many novels have been written by the influence of Sri Aurobindo. We will talk about that later. But let us understand first the seemingly simple promise given by Sri Krishna. Not clear? And before we go to this promise, let us understand from what level of mind this promise is coming. Because the entire synthesis of yoga is nothing but synthesizing the various layers of our mind. You always remember that when we talk about yoga, now in this century, yoga means controlling chitta vrittis. And we should know the difference between mind and capital M mind used by Sri Aurobindo. Aurobindo just doesn't say mind. When he writes mind, many places you will always find in synthesis of yoga, it starts with a capital M, and that capital M is chitta. Manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. These are the 4 layers of mind. And when you cross the ahankara, you enter the supramental plane. So this particular promise that Sri Aurobindo received in jail was from the level of overmind, just below the supramental level. That we should remember. Because as we go on conducting these classes, Sri Aurobindo will lead us to one level of mind to higher levels of mind. You will feel that transformation in this week. But the only thing I want you is be open. Don't let your preconceived ideas come now. You can analyze it later. You can discuss it later. But what now you are supposed to do is just be open. Just be open, whether you like that statement or not. Because the moment you say, I like this statement, the ego comes in, the ahankara comes in. And once ahankara comes in, the entire integral yoga falls down. So the capital mind, this is received from the capital mind, chitta. After that you have ahankara. And after that, the real goal of integral yoga, the truth consciousness, or what we in the Vedantic literature call it as Vijnanamaya Kosha, comes in. So this is the promise. If you go through these pages of synthesis of yoga, you will be led by Sri Aurobindo himself. Layer after layer of your mind will be opened and peeled off. But you should allow it to be done. That's most important. For that, this promise is very important. This is the reason for which Sri Aurobindo came out of the jail and allowed himself labeled as a coward. Because after this Alipur ashram, let us not call it a jail, because it depends on how you look at it. For the outsiders, for those who were then struggling for the independence struggle, and for Britishers also, Sri Aurobindo was jailed. But we know now that it was not a jail for him. It was an ashram for him. So that is the type of reorientation of thinking that is required. Wherever you are in the Sri Aurobindo's ashram of supramental truth. Wherever you are, whatever job you are doing, it is not the job which is important. It is not the place you are residing which is important. It is not with whom you are living it is important. Because Sri Aurobindo lived with gundas in the jail, you can understand what type of people were around him. And so eloquently he writes that suddenly he found that all are Narayanas. All are Narayanas. And if Sri Aurobindo can look at the people who have jailed him as Narayanas, the people with whom he is forced to live as Narayanas, we are free people. We are not forced to live where we are, but we are supposed to live there because of certain obligations for evolution. You remember this. If you are understanding, if you are knowing why you are there, you are practicing integral yoga. That is the first step towards integral yoga. Don't try to change your habits. Don't try to change your thinking pattern. Allow it to be changed. Do you understand the difference? You are not going to change your thinking patterns. We are allowing something more powerful than us to change us. That is what we are going to read. But why this change? Why this supramental descent? What is it that made Sri Aurobindo, who was supposed to be the most single dangerous man in India at that time, feared by the Britishers as the one single man who is capable of overthrowing them, and he overthrew them, that is another story. But for all practical purposes, we feel that he sat without any work. Many times, many politicians came to him asking him to come out of that silence. And if I am right, it is Sri Champaklal who wanted a guarantee from Sri Aurobindo. He said, okay, I will come over to the ashram. I am not sure of the name, but if you can say, tell me the name of that revolutionary. He went to Sri Aurobindo in 1920s And he said, you who were the leader of our that great revolutionary spirit in India, you are sitting quietly in Pondicherry. Then Sri Aurobindo said, you are also welcome. Why do you feel that you are not welcome? You can also come and join the ashram. Then he said, no, I have a duty to perform. I have decided that I will work for the freedom of India. And therefore, if anybody can give me a guarantee that India will be free, and that too soon, then I will join the ashram. Then it seems that Sri Aurobindo kept quiet for a few minutes. And then he said, I give you the guarantee. A.B. Purani, right. You understand? By what power did Sri Aurobindo say that India will be free? And he has asked a revolutionary not to work for India's freedom because this is the promise which he got. I am from Lord Krishna, and for us it is the plane of overmind. So from the plane of the overmind, he received this message. Then Sri Aurobindo must have been in what level of mind when receiving this message? Just below it, the intuitive mind. Why I am telling you? You should be so clear of your ideas from which plane they are coming. So this message was coming from the overmind, from Lord Krishna. And Sri Aurobindo got this message from the level of intuition. And what does he intuit? Intuition, you know? Intuition means he does not question it. You can't question intuition, it comes, that's all. There is no logic, there is no explanation. You just accept. That is what we call intuit. What did he intuit? He heard Lord Krishna telling, I am rising up this nation to send forth my word. And now what do we mean by word from the plane of overmind? That is how we should think about what we are reading. Whenever you read something, you should know the reference point. When Shankaracharya says, Papoham Papa Karmaham, and we also repeat it, and say that Shankaracharya was also a sinner, because he has written that shloka, Papoham Papa Karmaham, what can I do? So, I am praying to you, O Lord. Then do you mean to say that Shankaracharya was a sinner? And if Shankaracharya was not a sinner, why did he write that? Papoham Papa Karma. Because for Shankaracharya, having a body itself is a sin. You understand the point? Because for Shankaracharya, the man who propagated the Advaita philosophy, for him, the greatest trouble was to be in the body. That was his sin. And do you think the sinner who is reading that understands Shankaracharya's mind? But we can because we have this book. But we have to study it just like we study any other science. And when you want to study it, you should understand the definitions first. And then you should know the formulas that are being utilized. And then it becomes a science. And as I go on, I will be giving you both the definitions as well as the formulas to utilize the various mental forces. The formula to utilize the higher mind, the formula to utilize the illumined mind, the formula to utilize the intuitive mind, the formula to utilize the overmind, and then the last, the complete surrender, where you don't have a formula, but you just accept the descent of the supermind, the supramental descent. So this is, in short, is the synthesis. We are going to synthesize our lower minds with the higher mind, and then from the higher mind we will go to the illumined mind. From the illumined mind we will go to the intuitive mind. From the intuitive mind, we will go to the over mind, and then we will keep quiet. Not till then. Not till then. You cannot keep quiet even if you want to. You have to understand all these levels. That is what he meant by world. And that word is Om. The three states of consciousness, the Jagrata, Swapna and Sushupti. And the three merging into Turiya. So this word we will have to take to the world. This is the destiny of India. And this is why India was given freedom. And this book he wrote before India was free. You remember that? There may be many editions later, but it was serialized in Arya, and at that time India was not free. And if you can correlate the various incidents, it was the First World War that was going in when he started the Arya. And when its editions came, it was the Second World War which was ending. And now the Third World War is going on. It is now in progress. We are not able to understand the Third World War process because alone, single-handedly, Sri Aurobindo is fighting that battle for us. That is what Mother meant when she wrote that epitaph. Am I right? The words she has written about Sri Aurobindo. We thank you, who single-handedly fought. Do you understand what Mother said? She was talking about the Third World War in the intuitive plane. And when nobody came, and when Sri Aurobindo was forced to leave his body, let me use this harsh word, because sometimes to get up we need harsh words. It is we failed him. He need not have left his body. When Mother comes for the last time and sees him, do you know with what anguish she said? He has decided to leave. That is what she said. To leave what? Because he helped in the First World War, he helped in the Second World War. I don't know how many of us who believe in him as an avatar really know in what way he fought the different battles, even when he was in the physical plane. The 12 years with Sri Aurobindo, what was the author's name? Nirodhan. You please read it. Don't say I know it. You read it in this angle. And then you will understand what I am saying, that almost we are coming to the other promise, where India is supposed to give this supramental truth to the world. And who will give it? If we who hear about it, we will speak about it, don't tell it to the world, who will tell it? Those who don't know, don't know. So this is what I want to impress, that this is what we are going to utilize the freedom that is given to us by Lord Krishna, by giving this message of 2 volumes. One is the synthesis of yoga and the other is life divine, and that is why I titled it as the promise divine. Now, when we have the divine promise, let us have a few slides of life divine also. Chapter 27, the sevenfold chord of being. Number 7 is very important. As we go on into this understanding of integral yoga, we will come to the 7 planes of mind, and that into 7 becomes 7 into 7, 49, the revisions of Savitri. Every time when Sri Aurobindo rose in his yogic practices, stepwise by stepwise, and when I say his practices, I mean the practices he did for the world. It is not that he required to do those practices. He did it for us. And every time he went one level up in the consciousness, he revised the Savitri. And each year he revised the Savitri. Why? Next slide. In Rig Veda, this is from Life Divine, chapter 27. It is not from Synthesis of Yoga. But why I wanted this is, the Life Divine is the cause for synthesis. If you don't have a divine life, there is no reason for synthesis. So, the first is the 7 chord being. We have 7 levels of mind. And then, in the ignorance of my mind, this is a Rig Veda. He has not given the reference of the shloka. Okay, forget about it. In the ignorance of my mind, I ask of these steps of gods that are set within. The steps of gods, the 7 layers. The 7, yes, any question? It's okay. So the 7 steps of God, layers of mind. In the ignorance of my mind, we don't know we have 7 steps of mind. I ask these steps of gods that are set within. The all-knowing gods have taken the infant of a year and they have woven about him 7 threads to make this weft. So if we can completely surrender, in total surrender, in 1 year, in us the supramental descent can happen. This is the promise of this mantra. And a mantra, whatever it promises, it gives, if you fulfill the conditions. What is the condition here? Set within. The 7 steps that are set within. So we should understand the 7 layers of the mind. And then the all-knowing gods have taken the infant of a year. And every time when the Ramanavami comes, just 9 days before it, we have the Ugadi. So every time the infant year starts from Ugadi, 1 year goes on, another Ugadi comes. 1 year goes on, another Ugadi comes. So each Ugadi can become a stepping stone. Either you finish the synthesis of yoga in 1 year or in 7 years. The maximum limit is 7 years. The minimum limit is 1 year. You can't finish synthesis of yoga's practice in less than a year, however fast you may grow. And you should not take more than 7 years. You understand the time limits? Can you take the challenge? That is up to you. But I am going to give the challenge very clearly in these 7 days. Next slide. We pose 8 principles instead of 7, and then we perceive that our existence is a sort of refraction of the divine existence. In inverted order of ascent and descent thus arranged, that is the Sat Chit Anand, existence, conscious force, bliss, then the supermind on one level of descent, and on the other level of ascent, from matter we enter life, we enter psyche, and then the mind. So in life, we as the individualized human beings are at this level. This is an ascent going on. Because of this continuous descent, try to understand about this thing. The existence descended into matter. Now, the existence is ascending. From matter, it has ascended to life, what is known as the vital body or the nervous body or the nervous system. And then the psyche you can take in our Vedantic literature as Aham. And then this is Chitta. And then this is, beyond these two, the supermind. The divine descends from pure existence through the play of consciousness force and bliss, Sat, Chit, Anand. These three words or the three pillars on which we will develop the entire structure of integral yoga. These are the three pillars, don't forget them. Sat, Chit, Anand. Existence, consciousness force, bliss. And their equivalents in the descent is existence is matter, conscious force is life, bliss is psyche, and then the creative medium. This entire play of these four things, the cosmos, the divine world, is created by supermind. So this is the creative force, the Brahma. And the creative medium of the supermind into cosmic being, we ascend from matter through a developing life, soul and mind, and the illuminating medium of supermind towards the divine being. So this is the entire plan of integral yoga. We have to understand these 8 levels of consciousness, and after understanding these 8 levels of consciousness, we should understand the involution of mind into matter, and then the ascent of matter into mind, and how it is now ready to receive the supermind to it or to ascend the supermind from it. Either the supermind can go into the mind or the mind can go to the supermind. If the supermind goes to the mind, it is a descent, and when the mind goes towards the supermind, it is an ascent. The descent is not in our control, but the ascent as an aspiration is in our control. If you aspire for understanding this, and you can surrender yourself to the supermind, the basics of integral yoga are fulfilled. This is the basics. Have you an aspiration to reach the supermind? Just as when a lecturer asks a student, suppose he is aspiring to become a doctor, what does he ask? Are you aspiring to be a doctor? Or just you want to be a doctor because in society he is given respect? So do you want supermind because we are aspiring for it, or because it is only a fashion? Let us be very clear in it, because Sri Aurobindo always used to stress that it is the integrity and sincerity of your thought which is important. It is not what we think about you or others think about you which is important. You should be with what is known as the Jnana Khadga, Viveka, the sword of knowledge. You should analyze yourself. That is this an aspiration towards mind which has brought us here? If it has not brought us here, let us start aspiring from now. You can start aspiring at any time. And when once you aspire, you be sure the reaction is certain. And what is the reaction? The descent of the supermind. But the descent of the supermind, how can you understand it? Now we go to page 281, chapter 13, the supermind and the yoga of works. I thought to start with this chapter because many of us, please believe me, were working with Mother and Aurobindo since many lives. This is a truth which you have to accept. Whoever is in any way related to Sri Aurobindo, whether as a worker in a printing press composing the book, in whatever sort he is, whether he hears it from somebody or sees a photograph of Sri Aurobindo, there is nothing by chance there. Because in truth consciousness, what you call as a chance doesn't happen. In truth consciousness, everything is truth. Everything is satya. So this point you should always remember, that if you think that this is the first time you are coming in contact with integral yoga or Sri Aurobindo, it is wrong. It is your concrete mind, your lower mind, which is putting you into these limitations. Anyone who reads integral yoga, even the name, even the title, must have been with Sri Aurobindo since many births. That is very, very important to remember. Because our concrete mind, the lower mind, especially the lower animal mind, which talks about only four things: ahara, nidra, bhaya, maidhunancha. It's okay if I put that in English, in Sanskrit?
Yes.
Or do you want an explanation for this? Ahara means food, bhaya means fear, maidhuna means procreation, sleep. Even though we have been in contact with Sri Aurobindo since so many lifetimes, it is a guarantee given by mother also. You should read what Aurobindo said about mother. It is not the first time that we as a group are coming into this planet Earth. We have been on other planets also to work for this cause. Can you understand the depth to which Sri Aurobindo was hinting when he said that you worked in other planets also with me, and now you say, I can't understand? Why? Because we are not allowing our consciousness to grow. And for growth, what do you want? Just a spirit of surrender. A seed surrenders to the earth, it grows. What more does it want? It is as simple as that. But sometimes I find that simple things become very complicated, probably because of over-explanation. And let me hope I don't over-explain nor under-explain. So you got this point? The duty of India is to spread the message of integral yoga and life divine. That is why Sri Aurobindo, the chosen vessel for the entire humanity. Let us be very clear when we talk something. It is not being very proud of it. When Newton says, I have discovered Newton's laws, do you mean he is proud of it? He is saying a statement. When Einstein says, I have discovered the Einsteinian laws, do you mean that Einstein is having ahankara? No. Einstein is just saying a statement of fact. And when mother wrote about Sri Aurobindo, that single-handedly that body has been the vessel for all these things, including the single-handed fight of Third World War. Believe in it, accept it. Don't let your egoistic, small-centered mind deny and misunderstand this statement of truth. And again, this statement of truth is also right. We have worked for him. We are working now unconsciously also. What is happening from the this one? Even matter is unconsciously supporting the truth conscious. You don't think that matter is going against truth. That is what the integral factor comes in Sri Aurobindo's theory. Because in general we think that our body, our desires, our thoughts should be rejected. They have no place. But when you talk about truth consciousness, don't you think that matter itself is playing a very important role? Whatever that role is, Sri Aurobindo himself will tell it. But you remember this, why I am telling it, even though you are not aware that you are a co-worker with Sri Aurobindo, you are a co-worker. And what I want you, can't you be an active co-worker? Many people ask me, how to be active? Read this book. Read this book into the world. Don't say nobody is hearing it. If you sit quietly in your room and read this, what is happening? Your mind's vibrations are changing. And do you know the most potent force in the world is mind? If the subtle atomic force is so powerful, how much more powerful is mind? Our minds. But how should we use our minds? By reading this book. So, if you find this book a formidable one, it is only for the appearances. Once you understand that you are a co-worker, you have already finished many of these levels, I am sure, come in. And I can guarantee one thing, that many of you are in the verge of intuitive plane, on the verge of intuitive plane, but unfortunately, we have forgotten it. Then what you have to do? Just I was telling you, just a few minutes before, the only thing is you have to awaken. You need not learn all these things. What you have to do is to awaken yourself. Jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. Uttishta jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. Uttishta, get up. Prapyavaran, the moment you get up, you get all the boons. So this is the role of India. Mind you, that is what Mother and Sri Aurobindo meant when about Akhanda Bharat. Akhanda Bharat means the entire planet Earth is Bharat. And when you say Bharat, I am not talking about the political aspects of India. I am talking about the spiritual aspects of India. It was the India's spiritual consciousness which was Jagadguru once, and again it is going to be revived. It is not that you have to again learn something and be Jagadguru. You have to be awakened to your status of Jagadguru. That is Akhanda Bharat. Next. No, go to the synthesis. 281, right. See the 281, you see the page number, and let us read it out. And I want to read it out why. Sri Aurobindo's English is mantric in nature. You remember this. Once upon a time, until Sri Aurobindo chiseled the English language, Sanskrit was the greatest language. Why greatest language? Because it is mantric in nature. Do you understand what you mean by mantric in nature? The vibrations are enough. Whether you understand it or not, the vibrations are enough. That is why Mother used to say, you need not understand Savitri. You should read Savitri. But if you go on reading Savitri and you don't understand, that means the vibrations are not penetrating into the depths of your mind. That is something else. So, whenever I read this book or whenever I teach this book, I always want to repeat the words of Sri Aurobindo as he has written it. So, the second paragraph in page 281, and those who don't have the book can see it. But I would prefer those who have the book to see the book and keep the book with you. Don't give this book to anybody else from today onwards. It is a specially charged words linked with your brain. When you go through these lines, something illuminating is happening. You are in the illuminating mind just below the intuitive level. And those who don't have the book, it doesn't matter, you hear the words. It must be kept in mind that the supramental change is a difficult, distant and an ultimate stage. You see the adjectives used by Sri Aurobindo. For us, supramental state is difficult. And then what does he say? It is distant. And then he says it is an ultimate stage. And when he means ultimate stage, it means once you reach the supramental state, again the planet Earth has to wait for some millions of years to go to the other higher levels. So in that way the supramental state is ultimate relatively. It is not ultimate, but relatively it is ultimate. The human being is now ready to enter the supramental state, but it is still distant to him. And it is difficult to him also. but it is the ultimate one. You understand the adjectives clearly? It must be regarded as the end of a far-off vista. So you understand what I mean by far-off vista? Once you reach the supramental plane and start living in the truth consciousness, for many millions of years, your consciousness has to wait to go further changes. That is what he meant by as the end of a far-off vista. Now, this is what the major fault which we do. It cannot be and must not be turned into a first aim. When we are reading this integral yoga, naturally what is our first aim? To reach Supramind. Naturally. But very clearly Sri Aurobindo wants that the supramental change cannot be and must not be turned into a first aim. Be careful of that. It is our aim, it is our ultimate aim, and it is the ultimate aim for us and for humanity, a far-off vista. For humanity. For us it is the ultimate aim, but when you start reading this book, it should not be and it cannot be your first aim, but a constantly envisaged goal or an immediate objective. You should not, this also should not be that you should always go on thinking that I should receive the supramental descent or I should go. Neither the ascent of the mind to supermind nor the supramental descent must be a constantly envisaged goal or an immediate objective. Don't do that. For it can only come into the view of possibility after much arduous self-conquest and self-exceeding at the end of many long and trying stages of a difficult self-evolution of nature. Even Sri Aurobindo, when he had this new body, he has to strain himself for 12 years for the supramental descent, which he already got it. You understand what I mean? Mentally, he was in the supramental level because the moment he started practicing pranayama, his mind was still. You remember the biography teacher, Lele, gave him a breathing practice and he said, you do it. For 3 days, Sri Aurobindo did that practice. And after that what happened? Sri Aurobindo lost his mind. Not in the negative sense. Because when you say lost his mind, we mean something else. But really Sri Aurobindo lost his mind. There was no mind there. Then he went to Lele and he said, what happened? He said, what happened? I also don't know. This is the goal for which we do pranayama and you say you have achieved it. Then what to do? Then they say, you can't do anything. You just pray God. You are following the aspects. So, this arduous self-conquest and self-exceeding, you should go beyond the individual thinking process. You should stop thinking like an individual. Then how should you think? He himself will tell later. But you understand it must be an arduous self-conquest and self-exceeding. And if we as Sri Aurobindonians talk about integral yoga and we don't have a arduous self-conquest and self-exceeding at the end of many long and trying stages, he is not talking about years. He says about the stages of mind. And in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the stages can be easily conquered, they say, if there is Tivra Samveganam Asannaha. The stages are to be achieved now itself if there is a very intensive aspiration, Tivra Samvegaha. So when he says self-conquest and self-exceeding and orders, he is not talking about time factor there. He is talking about, did you reach the stages? Have you a very clear-cut notion of higher mind? We are very conscious of the lower mind, the engineers, the doctors, the scientists. These are all lower mind expressions because they deal with lower matter. When a scientist deals with lower matter, he is using lower mind. So these stages, and in these 6 days, I can give you a guarantee that we will reach the intuitional level. But be prepared for that. It should be orders. You have to read and read and read again only these paragraphs. You need not read, and read in this order because it helps you to understand in a better way. So therefore you have prepared the copies ఉన్నాయి కదా, you just circulate it. And those who have the books, no problem, you can just remember the page and read it. Difficult self-evolution of the nature. This is what we have to understand in yoga. Really, yoga means evolution. But evolution in a very fast way. And that is quite possible when you can make your life, all life as yoga. It is very easy to talk this word, but to practice this word, to practice this, when you say all life is yoga, and when I touch this, I should know how the evolutionary factors of iron or steel, whatever it may be, are interacting with each other. You are sitting there on the table. Do you remember that mother always wants, don't push the chair, handle it carefully as if it has got its own individuality. Do you remember it? Don't push it with your legs. Just keep it slowly. No sound, no jarring sound must come. Every sound is a product of yoga. And when you draw the chair, creating a harsh voice, a sound. Do you know many times when some sand is there and when something is moved over the sand, do you find it very harsh, don't you? Am I able to express my problem? The harshness of the sound? So be careful. All life is yoga means this. And when you can't love your own neighbor, your own people in the group, how can you say you are a practitioner of integral yoga? When you are not supposed to touch a chair without love. So all life is yoga, we will come later. But this is what he says. Understand self-evolution. Man helps the evolution of the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. Are you aware that you are helping in the evolution of these 3 kingdoms? If you are not aware, you are unconscious of your role. But it is happening. It is happening. But we are not conscious of our goals. And if you are conscious, what happens? Evolution of millions of years can be compressed into few years. And that is what yoga is. So you should feel that power, the pressure of compression. That is what tapasya is. Are you feeling that continuous pressure of evolution in yourself? It is the existence. You remember the table? Existence, conscious force. You are able to remember? Sat, Chit, Anand, supermind, and then the 4. So it is the power of the existence which is pushing us, which is expressing itself through us. You should be aware of that every moment. The pressure, you should be aware of it. Are we aware of it? This is the self-order, self-conquest and self-exceeding. So this we must remember. I don't know if I could convey the spirit of it. What Sri Aurobindo used to say as the tapasya, what in Savitri is known as the Ashwapati Yoga. Ashwa means mind. Shwa means past and tomorrow. A means no past, no tomorrow. Ashwapati. So beyond time consciousness. That beyond time consciousness is working in you in a triple way. as the past, present and future. This we have to discuss every time we are together. And remember, in truth consciousness, all this has already happened. I don't know if you can understand what is meant by this a very silly statement. So when we talk about Akhanda Bharat, in truth consciousness it has already happened. And similarly, your achieving the supramental plane has already happened in truth consciousness. Now what are we supposed to do? There is no other way except much orders, self-conquest and self-exceeding. You understand what I mean by self-exceeding? When you mean by self-exceeding, your mind must know all the four states of mental consciousness. The higher mind, the illumined mind, the intuitive mind and the overmind, and then let the super mind's light all these four. This is a seemingly arduous task for us, but for supramental it is very easy, and probably it has already happened. Next, page 281, second para. One must, where is it? Same para, 281, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line. Second para, 7th line, you got it? One must first acquire an inner yogic consciousness and replace it by our ordinary view of things, natural movements, motives of life. One must revolutionize the whole present build of our being. So this is what Sri Aurobindo asks us as the first step towards the practice of integral yoga. This is what you have to say. You have to acquire an inner yogic consciousness. And what is yogic consciousness? You should understand what evolution is. And then where you are in the evolution. And then speed up your evolution. These are the three steps which you have to learn. And Sri Aurobindo gives it very clearly in the introductory chapters, 5 chapters. So don't worry what they are. You try to understand the steps. The step is yogic consciousness. And this yogic consciousness, if you view the life, if maybe I sound personal, but some examples have to be personal to understand. Somewhere in India, I was attending a class in integral yoga. And then he said, his daughter last year couldn't get a visa, but when he started studying integral yoga, his daughter got a visa. It looks very logical, but it is not yogic. Because a common man thinks about yoga like this: what benefit I will get physically by doing it. But we reading Sri Aurobindo and still think about the materialistic benefits which we are sure to get, but about which we should not make a practice that this is why we are doing integral yoga. Whatever may happen in your day-to-day life, it should not interfere with your awareness of yogic consciousness. So never try to fathom the results of integral yoga with the physical benefits, the mental benefits, the emotional benefits, the desires that are fulfilled for us. You put a stop there. Never try to see that because I am doing this integral yoga, I got this benefit. You will get benefit because it is integral, because it is a part of the totality. But don't give emphasis to the part, to the wish that is fulfilled, but try to understand the totality. That is what he says, one must first acquire an inner yogic consciousness and replace by it our ordinary view of things. Am I clear now with the examples I have given? The ordinary view of things you should forget when being a student of integral yoga. Let me repeat it. When you are practicing integral yoga, this mindset must be there. Not every time. You can enjoy what you are eating. Don't say that because I am practicing integral yoga, a sweet should not be sweet and I can't enjoy a sweet thing. But it should be only a part of your evolution. And how does eating food gives you a hold on evolution? Can you tell me? Eating food makes you a very important contributor to evolution. That is what our Indian yogis have said. Your mind is formed by the food you eat. If you eat with that awareness, you are a yogi. So it is only, it has to be replaced. What is to be replaced? Whatever you are doing, do it. Replace it with a yogic view of things. You are eating, know how that food is going to control your mind. There is an incident in Mahatma Gandhi's life when he was arrested and was put in jail. A culprit who was already in the jail was asked to cook food for him. So Gandhi took that food that night and he dreamt as if he was killing his mother. And he was very much perplexed, Gandhi. I am a votary of ahimsa, practicing ahimsa for so many years, and because of that ahimsa I am going to get independence to India, and I dream like this. Because yuktahara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, yukta swapna avabodhasya. Even your dream is important in yoga. So Gandhi was perplexed, and then a commission was placed, and luckily that commission was over within few minutes. Nowadays the commissions take years together. And that commission gave the report that the man who cooked food for Gandhi was charged with murder of his mother. Now for a yogi, eating food also becomes very important. Are we so aware of what we are eating? You have to. Sri Aurobindo says, every step of yoga you have to cross. You just can't say that because I am practicing supramental descent, I don't have to go through those stages. Every stage has to be covered. So eating, ahara, and the way you sleep. Charaka says that obesity is caused by not knowing how to sleep. A very simple practice. So if the obesity clinics know about this, they will see that this is not given out. Because if you can sleep well, there will be no obesity. So all these stages are the part of the inner yogic consciousness. You need not tell to others. You are eating with so many people. You can be aware of what you are eating and what changes it is going to bring in your mind. Remember it. Next we have to go still deeper. Discover our veiled psychic entity, and the page is changed. In its light and under its government, psychicize our inner and outer parts, turn mind nature, life nature, body nature, and all our mental, vital, physical action and states and movements into a conscious instrumentation of the soul.